I kept going back to the doctors. They told me it was hormones. It's your age. Oh, you're in perimenopause. But I knew something was wrong. And by the time they found out what that was, it was almost too late. I remember sitting in the car after being released from yet another ER emergency visit and wondering to myself, what do I do now? I felt really invisible. I felt like no one was hearing me. In some ways, I started to doubt myself because my mind was thinking, there's something seriously wrong here, but I'm being told something else. And it wasn't just one doctor. It was multiple doctors over multiple visits. And every time it was just the same thing. This is a normal part of your life. Take these tablets and go home. And I know that I am not the only woman that this has happened to. Cancer. My story is one that my head still 3.5 months down the track has not caught up to. I had no idea that I was going to wake up on the morning of the 12th of March this year and 5 hours later be diagnosed with stage 3 cervical cancer. Even saying it now, I still haven't processed that I have cancer. It's so overwhelming. I, for many months prior to my diagnosis, believed that I was going through perimenopause. I think there's a serious problem around the world. I've read in reports that the average medical student covers about 2.5 hours of content detail in their medical training per year around menopause and sexual health. So it hardly seems that much of a reach that when we go to the doctors, we are misdiagnosed, we are told we have something else, we are sent away, which is exactly what happened to me. I believed that I was in perimenopause. My cycle started to change. In the beginning, the regularity started to change last year from every 28 days, sometimes every 24, 26, 31, kind of moved up and down. And I really just did believe that that was part of my cycle coming to the end, go through perimenopause and finally hit menopause. I was in the right age bracket, so I just thought that was normal. I felt extremely tired, a tiredness that I've never felt before in my life. And I just believe that, I'm a mature mum, I've got 2 kids, I run a business, I am flat out all day, every day. I am exhausted, I don't sleep very well. And I just thought, well, that's part of life. I used to get really bad bloating. Again, I just thought that was part of the perimenopause journey. But then in November last year, you can check out the video up here, I had the most horrific bleeding event. I was absolutely hemorrhaging. I felt like I lost 1 litre of blood in an hour. For anyone out there who is trying to work out if you have similar symptoms, I was dropping massive clots. I was going through pads and tampons every 2 to 3 minutes. It was gushing out of me. I could feel my lifeblood just oozing. I honestly did not know how I was still alive. It was so frightening, and after a few hours I knew something was really wrong. I rang telehealth and they told me to get straight to the ER. When I got to the ER, I was seen, I was treated, I was tested, I was given an internal ultrasound, and believe me, they are horrific. They are not a pleasant experience, and yeah, they're quite embarrassing, particularly when you're bleeding. I was given tranexamic acid to help with the bleeding, and after a few more tests, I was eventually sent home. This continued on and off over the next few months. I would have these episodes that would last for days. It got to the point it was really hard for me to even leave the house because it could just gush out of me like water, like pour at any time. And it was deliberating. I would spend days in bed. I couldn't move. I was in so much pain, and I was just in the bathroom for hours upon hours and hours every day. I kept believing that this was perimenopause. It was just my body's last hurrah before it ended. This went on, as I said, for a few months, and then we got hit with a cyclone in March, and we couldn't leave the house for days. And that was about the same time that I had another really bad episode like I did in November. And this lasted the whole of the weekend, and I could not leave the house because of the conditions. I eventually, I think it was the Tuesday, I went down to the doctor's and took my daughter who had the flu, and my doctor took one look at me and said, "You're going to the ER." I was pale, I was covered in sweat, my feet were blue like a smurf. I was so sick, I was so weak, I was obviously anemic, I was exhausted. So I was taken to hospital and I went through the same routine as I did the time before. And this time they decided to test a bit deeper. And after my ultrasound, I was advised that I was going to be having a pap smear, biopsy and a test. And they left me. So I lay in that ER for a few hours, not understanding what was going on, with the fear that they said, "We are testing for cancer." And I lay there, and I lay there, and I lay there. Unfortunately, I did not get a room until about 1 a.m. So it was a big day. I left home in the morning, didn't come home for a week. About 1 a.m., the doctor came up to me, sat at the side of my bed, and basically told me I had cervical cancer. It's just still to this day, I can't process it. I can't get it through my head. It's like, how? Yeah, I just didn't understand how. And they basically told me then that I would have a bunch of tests. So I had a PET and a MRI and CTs and biopsies and all sorts of really horrible, invasive, terrible things that any woman should never have to go through. And basically a couple of days later, I'd already been told I had cancer, but I didn't know how bad it was. But basically a couple of days later, the test came back and I was stage 3. And I remember sitting there crying in the dark in my hospital room, thinking this isn't happening. Like last week I was walking 10,000 steps, I was hitting the gym, I was living my normal life. I was hitting menopause. Like, I didn't think this meant cancer. What has frightened me the most is that this seems to be a big issue. I've spoken to a lot of women who have menopausal symptoms. They're sent away from the doctors with things like, "You've got IBS, oh, you've got back pain, oh, you're just tired, it's just your age, take some iron, take some hormone replacement tablets." It's not, we do have the testing that was every 7 years and now every 5 years, but it is something that a lot of women do delay. It's not something that everyone is on top of all of the time, and it is not guaranteed. I've read some studies that said that the false negatives can be as high as 40%. So that's a lot of people that, may have something more sinister there that they know about. I know a few women that have said that they've had that same extreme bleeding, and I've said, really go see your doctor and get tested, get further testing to be sure, because this could be cancer. I'm not saying it is, but it is definitely something that we need to be more aware of. I think we know so little about perimenopause and menopause and our conditions, and it is such a taboo subject. Nobody wants to talk about it. The teal cancers, which is basically from the pelvic down, is the gynecological cancers, are the least funded cancers in the world. This is frightening if you consider that the HPV cervical cancer vaccine wasn't readily available until 2007 in Australia. I don't know how long it took to get out to the rest of the world. That means that you were talking about the baby boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, and part of Gen Z that were not vaccinated. HPV is the cause of 99 0.7% of cervical cancer. And guess what that comes from? It comes from men. It's sexually transmitted. And so pretty much, even if you've only had the one partner your whole entire life, if they've had it at any point, it's a virus, they could have given it to you. It can lay dormant for 10 years and then something triggers it and you get cancer. If you think about that, it only started to come out into schools in the late 2000s. That means literally every woman over 29 is not covered. That is estimated to be about 1.5 billion women globally that have not been vaccinated against cervical cancer. And I would assume that most of those women have had at least one sexual partner. So that is a ginormous amount of women that are not covered, that are not aware of the symptoms, who are maybe being misdiagnosed, not being seen by a doctor, not getting the right treatment. Even having your pap smears every 5 to 7 years is no guarantee, as I said, because of all the false negatives. So we really need to become so much more aware of our body. If you have serious heavy bleeding, if you have clots, if you have excessive bloating, tiredness, along with hip and back pains and leg pains are also some of the symptoms. Unfortunately, they disguise themselves as symptoms as PCOS and perimenopause. A lot of the things that women put up with on a day-to-day basis are the exact same symptoms. This is why they call it the silent killer, because the symptoms aren't enough to scare us, to highlight us, to make a doctor delve deeper. They didn't with me. They sent me home, and I'm going to have to live with that anger for the rest of my life. That had I been diagnosed early, had I not been misdiagnosed, had I not been sent home as an older person who just needs to take a tablet and get on with it, maybe I wouldn't be stage 3. Maybe I wouldn't be going through serious, traumatic and aggressive cancer treatment to try to save my life. I'm really disgusted about how little is talked about the gynecological cancers, how little that menopause and perimenopause and women's issues is really not talked about. It's not funded. It is quiet. I would never put anything down on anyone going through cancer because it is horrific. But I turn on the news, I flip through Facebook, all my media, it's pink, pink, pink. That is wonderful that breast cancer is being funded and is being highlighted because it is the most diagnosed cancer in the world. However, all cancer isn't pink. And every day, women like myself are waking up to horrific news for something that wasn't their fault. It wasn't because they didn't eat right or diet or exercise. It's a virus that came from a man. There was nothing that could be done. It just happens sometimes. It's bad luck. But what scares me is that women are not getting tested, that they're getting turned away from doctors, they're getting busy. Women always put on the hero fight and we do what we need to do to get through every day for our families and for our children in our jobs. We just soldier on and we do it. We miss appointments, we pretend symptoms aren't there, we mask them, we take Panadol, we take Nurofen, we take Constant, we just get on and what we have to do. And in my case, I was sent home. Meanwhile, that tumour was growing silently inside of me and I didn't know. And had that day I had not decided to push back and go back to the ER, had I just got home, and I was that close to going back home again, to not go through that whole process again, thinking, well, they're just going to do the whole thing again, send me home, and thousands of dollars worth of bills again. But I don't know, just something made me go back. Had I not, that cancer would have spread and now I would be terminal. I don't know what my prognosis is yet because they haven't told me. I'm doing treatment. I've had 3 surgeries. I've had 28 radiations, some of those twice a day on public holidays. I've had chemo. I was allergic to my chemo. I've had a PICC line put in. I've had a port put in. It has been, my blood pressure has gone through the roof because I have severe medical anxiety. So this has been so hard on me because I am frightened of doctors. I'm frightened of needles. Say the B word or the V word in front of me and it freaks me out. Yes, that's my little bracelet to tell everyone that I have a injectable port. I needed that because that's what I still have from the first attempts of trying to cannula me in my chemo. I couldn't do it. I pass out, I get sick. But despite all my pain and all my suffering, I can't deal with this happening to anyone else. And I'm going to be banging on about this, and I'm going to become the teal warrior. I'm going to start screaming from the rooftops. People need to understand more about women's gynecological cancers, more about perimenopause, more about menopause. We're talking about half of the world is female. We are all going to get to this age, and it's about time that someone stood up and said, what the hell is going on? And you know what? We need some answers. I am blogging my whole entire journey, so I hope that you can follow that with me. Please share this with anyone that you know that is female. Let's get the word out there and start making female lives matter. I will see you in the next video.